UVA basketball and UVA football. The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, thinking they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
We do Orioles preview every Wednesday. What's the preview of the rest of the season? Whew, pretty ugly, I think. Maybe things get turned around. But last night was historically bad. It started out with 3 straight home runs on 5 pitches by the Orioles to start the game. By the end of the inning, they had 4 home runs, a double and a triple, and a 5-0 lead. And Kyle Gibson, your return to Baltimore may be very, very short. We'll get to that. More follow-up on the stadium story. A lot of work to be done before this is approved. City Council is going to take its whack at it. And some crazy stuff last night in the closing game by the Indiana Pacers against the Milwaukee Bucks. We'll take an autopsy of that at 10 o'clock. It's really a bizarre story. But I guess has an ending which is not so bad. But it was really bad for Kyle Gibson last night. How bad was it? Well, as I say, the 3 home runs to start the game. For the game, Gibson gave up 5 home runs. In fact, here are the ugly numbers in the 15-3 loss, if that's not an ugly enough number to begin with. His pitching line was what? I had that written down here. Anyway, he is the Yankees are the first team in Major League history to twice in a season lead off the game with 3 consecutive home runs. They did that March 29th at Yankee Stadium against Milwaukee. Let me give you the line. He did last until into the 4th inning. So it's amazing with a start like that's how far he went. But over 3 1/3, Gibson gave up 11 hits, 9 earned runs. And only struck out 2 on the night, and just raised his season-starting debut ERA to 22.0. 22.0. So 22 runs, essentially, over 9 innings if he were allowed to stay into the game. It was about as bad as you can get last night. And the Orioles, they're not good. This was a team that was expected to get to the playoffs for the 3rd straight year, and maybe they're going to get there. But they're 11-8. Here are the teams that are worse. Pittsburgh, with a very low payroll, they're 11-19, only slightly worse. The White Sox, who were historically bad last year, they're 7-22. And Colorado, which looks like it's taking the torch as the worst team in baseball this year, 4-25. That's it. They are 27th in pitching. Their ERA, they're giving up 5.52 runs a game. And they've given up the most hits in baseball, 300 hits over the course of these, 29 games that they've played so far. Now, baseball is an everyday sport. And there's a news conference for the manager before the game. There's a news conference for the manager after the game. And occasionally there's some media availabilities over the course of the season, extra for the manager. And from time to time, Mike Elias holds news conferences. 2 years ago, Mike Elias was the executive of the year in Major League Baseball. Now there are calls for his firing. Like, they did not do enough to address the pitching, as evidenced last night by Kyle Gibson, who's 37 years old, was on the street till the Orioles picked him up just before the season started, makes his season debut last night, and was just god-awful. But this happens more often than you might think. This is an actual question that was asked at last night's news conference after the Orioles lost to the Yankees 15-9 to manager Brandon Hyde.
When did you realize that it wasn't going to be his night?
Well, did he give up 4 homers in the first inning? That's kind of a telling sign.
When did you know it wasn't his night? Well, when he gave up 4 homers in the first inning, he didn't add in, of course, the first 3 batters hit home runs in the game. There's a sound bite, which I can't play on the air, but it's a rant from the late Tom Lasorda after Dave Kingman had hit 3 home runs against his team. And he said, the question was, what did you think of his performance? And there's so many F-bombs in there, it would take you all day to edit it. But it begins with, what did I think of his effing performance? What did I think of his effing performance? I didn't go there. He doesn't seem to be that type. He's a little more easygoing. But again, the question, when did you know it wasn't his night? How about when he gave up 4 home runs in the first inning? As the late Ken Beatrice would say, it boggles. It boggles the mind. All right, to better things. We had what was, on Monday, as much of a sell job as an announcement. The announcement that the team has made an agreement with the city to build a stadium on the RFK site, with the team paying $2.7 billion and the team paying $1 billion, and the team picking up cost overruns. We'll get to some blowback on that, but I meant to play this the other day, and that is the great Joe Gibbs at his Hall of Fame induction. And in those days, Hall of Fame speeches were reasonable. Now they go on for like half an hour. Gibbs went 7 minutes. And this was a part of it, which I think really tells you the feeling that he had as a coach, coaching all those years in the first go-round at RFK.
I'm going to tell you something, and some of the other players up here will all tell you this. When you walk out in that stadium at RFK, it's one of the greatest feelings in pro sports. I want to say a great thanks to all of you for that atmosphere. Yeah, it was a crummy stadium. Man, we had crud hanging off of it. And the fans are right on top of everybody. But I'm going to tell you this, when people came in there, it was hard to beat us. All the memories that I took from there, I want to say a big thanks to all those fans, because I, in my heart, believe you're the greatest fans. I'm going to tell you this, you're the greatest fans of all of pro sports. Hey, you made it what it was. You made that atmosphere what it was. You were the ones that prompted these players to play like they played. And so I want to say a big thanks to every single fan out there that pulled for us. Hey, it was your stadium, it was your place, and part of what's going on up here today belongs to you.
Yeah, so that was Joe Gibbs 29 years ago at his Hall of Fame induction. The stadium actually had one more year to go. That was in the summer of 1996. And I think that says it in a very concise way about how he felt about coaching on that field. This is also something that we played yesterday. I'm going to play it again because I thought it was just so eloquent. Pat Collins, not a script. He was being interviewed from his home on Channel 4, where he worked for so many years. He is born and bred Washingtonian, grew up here, has lived in D.C. his entire life. And this was his reaction to the news on Monday that a deal had been reached.
I am thrilled by what happened today. I used to live at 910 Constitution Avenue Northeast. I used to walk to RFK with my wife. We occasionally would put scotch in baby bottles so we could sneak it into the stadium to lubricate ourselves during the game. This is hallowed ground out there at RFK. It is gone to seed. It's a travesty what happened out there. And today's announcement, I think, is one of the most important things to happen in our city since they opened Metro. Football in Washington is like a religion. It transcends all our differences. Democrats, Republicans, different religious groups, ethnic groups. On football Sunday, everybody was united together. You could go through this town, and if you weren't at the game, you were in front of a TV rooting that team on. It made us special. It was a unifying force, and it's something we missed over the years. They put it out at FedEx Field. God knows why. Well, I know why. They put it out there because Jack Kent Cooke wanted a stadium built before he died. He got in a little conflict with Mayor Sharon Pratt Kelly, and he wanted that stadium built. They built it in a year, and it looks like it. And now it's sitting out there. Nobody knows how to get to. It's hard in, it's hard out. We had a torturous owner, and now everything is lined up. And I'm telling you, this is a historic day for the city of Washington, a big day for the mayor. I mean, look what the mayor has done. She has kept the Caps and the Wizards down in Chinatown where they belong. She has now negotiated a deal to bring back our beloved football team to the place where it belongs. There's going to be houses. There's going to be restaurants. It is going to reinvigorate that place over there like you've never seen before. I know you probably drove. I drove by there over and over again, and I'd watch it. It was like leprosy hitting the stadium, pieces falling off, rust. It's just awful to see that, and all the fond memories we had there. All our heroes, our football heroes, and Joe Gibbs, and the concerts I went there, the Rolling Stones. I saw I took my kids to the Michael Jackson, their first concert, rock concert. I took them to RFK for that. So many memories over there. And now there'll be another place for more people to create more memories. It is a wonderful, wonderful deal. I hope the council will approve it. I think the city will enjoy it for decades to come. I can't wait to get an opportunity to walk into that brand new stadium when it opens.
So that is the rah-rah portion of the story. Now the reality portion, and I'll get to what Barrios Berluga has in the Post today about it, but this was towards the end of the news conference on Monday, and a question from Mark Seagraves of Channel 4, who covers the city council, and asked this very pertinent question.
Mayor Bowser, I'm just wondering what you will say to residents at a time, you're faced with an enormous uphill budget battle going forward, both in the 2025 and in the upcoming 2026, with the prospects of layoffs, cuts of services, and hundreds of millions of dollars cut from the out years in the budget. How do you justify, what do you say to residents who think this is not the right time to put hundreds of millions of dollars into this development when you're having to cut services and possibly furlough workers? And then, Mr. Harris, for you mentioned that through this you've learned a lot about the political process with the federal government. You're about to learn a lot about the political process with the D.C. Council. And I only see 4 council members here today. You're going to need 7 votes. I'm wondering what your plan, we saw what happened with Monumental in Virginia. I'm wondering what your plan B is and how serious you've negotiated with Maryland throughout this if this deal falls through, if the D.C. Council fails to approve this. So, Mayor Bowser,
first, Mark, I want to make sure you're not confusing viewers. We're not talking about the CR-caused FY25 summer crises. We're not talking about that. What we're talking about is our future. We're talking about our FY26 budget. And I'm advancing a balanced FY26 budget that is both focused on right-sizing spending, for sure, but it is also making some big, bold investments in growth. Yeah. Now is not the time where our economy is shifting. You know what our job is right now? Our job is to replace economic activity for 40,000 people. If we don't make some change, they may not have their jobs. If we don't make some change, they may not live here. So our job is to advance a budget that is bold and that invests in growth. And I'm going to be talking a lot more about all of that growth agenda, but it starts with a catalytic investment at RFK. We cannot leave. If you need to add revenue, as we do, you can't leave 180 acres vacant. If you need to add jobs, as we do, you cannot wait for an anchor to show up to start developing there. When you need to attract business, you have to be about business. So we're going to be talking about FY26. Now, the Congress still has to fix FY25. Because if they don't, because your question is a serious one, I call it a fake budget crisis because we have the money. That's right. So if we have to cut services because they don't fix their snafu, then that's a problem. But we're going to keep pushing it. But we can't stop because no matter what happens with FY25, FY26 is coming. And so we're going to have at the end of FY30 or the beginning of FY30 a new stadium. We're going to have it.
I think that this is an incredible ROI for the city of D.C., the local community around the stadium. Literally, the mayor has done an amazing job at negotiating on behalf of the city, but also becoming a partner with us in an investment that is going to create like billions of tax revenue, thousands of jobs, a whole new community, and tie together the city. And look, I look forward to continuing my engagement and intensifying my engagement with the council, both Ward 7, but also the broader DC communities and the people that are representing the broader DC community, and being super transparent, giving them the details they need. And I think the project speaks for itself. And I think the project will stand, and I believe will convince the council this is in the best interest of D.C.
So that was the selling by the mayor and the owner of the team, Josh Harris, on Monday. Now the dose of reality here from Barry Zerluga in the Washington Post, who is a D.C. resident, not Maryland suburbs, not Virginia suburbs. He lives in D.C. And he writes today, yes, the $2.7 billion that Josh Harris's group would put into a new stadium on the eastern edge of Capitol Hill is a large number, and it doesn't appear he's trying to fleece the district. But another large number is $1 billion, which appears to be the floor on funds that would come from D.C. Don't allow the mayor's office to distract you by saying the percentage of public money is the lowest of any recently built NFL stadium. It's not, because suburban Los Angeles' SoFi Stadium received a total of $0. Yeah, that was Stan Kroenke, who's worth more money, a lot more money, believe it or not, than Josh Harris. And he built a $5 billion stadium with his own money in Los Angeles. That's a very unusual thing. I don't know if you can really, well, I guess you can use it as a comp, but I'm not sure that that's a completely fair comp on this. More from Barry. He points out, and I talked about this the other day as well, that when the Expos were moving here from Montreal in 2004, the D.C. Council killed it, because there was no money coming from an owner because Major League Baseball owned the Expos. So the city was going to have to build it itself. And he writes that Linda Kropp helped to wrest a better deal out of Major League Baseball before funding what would become Nationals Park. So that's true. And that's another part of this story, that there is going to be more negotiating on this. Maybe the district will pay less, which is what, Barry is lobbying for now. Some more information on this. The mayor is touting that there's only 24% coming from the district. And he writes another way to look at it. Of the 9 NFL stadiums that have opened or are being built since 2009, only one, the upcoming facility for the Tennessee Titans in Nashville, is receiving more public cash. This at a time when the district's bond rating was just downgraded, which would make it more expensive to borrow money. This at a time when the federal workforce is shrinking by the day, meaning a company town is losing company people and jobs. And she's talked about that as well. This at a time when the budget Bowser will submit to the council could cut hundreds of millions of dollars in city services. Yeah, maybe the capital budget that funds projects such as this is in a different bucket, but the district as a whole is a bucket that's leaking at the moment. Side note, he writes, think they'll have events at the stadium 200 days annually, which is what they said the other day. He says, calling 200 Pinocchios on that. AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas has 15 non-Dallas Cowboys events scheduled for the rest of the year. Of them, one of them is a blood drive. MetLife Stadium has 38 non-New York Jets and Giants events between now and the NFL season. 38 seems aggressive for D.C., so maybe it's not going to be 200. And he concludes by saying this, let's make sure it's on terms that benefit everyone, not just the mayor and the team, which is probably going to happen. Now, there's a July 15th date, which is important. That's the date where either they come to a deal or they extend the deadline on the deal, which is almost certainly going to happen. Because, realistically, there's no real deadline on this. They want to take down RFK, and they're going to do that no matter what they build there. That's still got to go. And I think it could take, if they extended another 6 months to a year, I think maybe ideally you'd like to announce just before the season starts that they have a deal, and that that'd be a great kickoff to the season. And by 2030, they'll be playing games at this new stadium on the RFK site. But there's a lot that has to happen. And yes, if you were here and you followed what Linda Kropp did and what the city council was doing 20 years ago to make sure they had the best deal, that's important. But you also have to realize this, and I know Barry is making a point as a columnist and also as a D.C. resident, and I respect his work greatly. But what looks like a lot of money now, down the road, so I think the deal cut maybe $100 million out. It was initially a $610 million proposal that the city would pay to build what is now Nats Park. And Linda Kropp, with some maneuvering, was able to get the payout by the district to be lower. And we have a great baseball stadium, and maybe it's not as good as Camden Yards, but considering we didn't have baseball here for 34 years, to have a stadium at a spot where it is right off of Metro, I think we got to be pretty happy with that. All right, coming up, some draft follow-up, including, and this was actually draft weekend follow-up, had little to do with the draft, but what Bill Belichick said in his CBS interview and what people are now saying about that. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
So for an NFL draft that really wasn't all that sexy, not like the great quarterback draft from the year before, the ratings were tremendous, best since 2020, which was the pandemic year when they did it from Goodell's basement, and people were desperate for something to watch. There were no sports going on at the time. People were interested, and the big storyline was the dropping of Shedeur Sanders. And you can point to whatever reason you want to point to for it, but the reality is just wasn't worth the squeezing. That's really what it came down to. Can he play quarterback in the NFL? Yeah, he probably can. Is he going to be a star? Maybe he will be, but the way they handled things, limiting access to him, maybe tanking some interviews for where he didn't want to necessarily go. And you can take this for what it's worth, but, these are things that scare off teams. They had a big celebration planned at a club in Dallas. It took place 2 days late. They expected it to happen Thursday night. Wound up happening Saturday night, but it occurred at the Hide and Seek Club, which I'm not familiar with. But there was a viral snapshot of Shedeur holding a suitcase, a Louis Vuitton suitcase with cash in it. And there was a report that it was $100,000. Oh, no, says the brother, Deion Jr. This is the non-football playing brother of the trio. Shiloh has signed a free agent deal with Tampa. But Deion Jr. tweeted out, let me correct the story now. It was actually a gift he received, and it was $1 million in cash while he was partying with rappers who I'm not familiar with, Kodak Black, Young Miami, Trap Boy Freddy, okay, and Jamaican dance hall singer Shanisa, it says here, or Shanisa. Anyway, she's been linked to Shedeur. So, is what it is. Here's Albert Breer of SI.com on with Dan Patrick yesterday on when he knew that Shedeur was going to drop lower than the first round.
February. I know that sounds crazy. February. I don't know. I was like everybody else in December and January thinking, okay, is it going to be Cam or Shedeur? Being the first quarterback off the board. The more people I talked to when I started to do my research on the draft class, which really, I try to do it all year, but it really kind of gets going once the season ends. The more people I talked to said he's just not a first round talent. Now, people would have said the same thing about Bo Nix the year before. And I think I said this to you guys. I said this a bunch of different places. Like, I would say he could go third or 33rd. And the reason I said that is because I didn't think he was going in the first round, and really what I meant by that was like maybe he finds the fit the way that Bo Nix did, and no one's going to argue with where Bo Nix went now because of the rookie year he had. And there was a team that fit him perfectly. He found that team, they found him, and now they live happily ever after. But absent finding that team, he wasn't a good enough physical prospect to go in the first round. He wasn't what you normally see in a first-round quarterback. And a lot of people were just whistling by the graveyard on that, but it was what it was all along. And now here's the other part of it, Dan, is if he's not a first-round pick and he's got to go find his fit, does it make any sense for him to be thinning the herd? Which effectively is what they were doing, over the last couple of months, the way they were handling some of their meetings. And so, I think that was a mistake. I think another piece of it is, how you view your backup and what you expect from your backup and how most coaches want their backup to blend in with the furniture. And, most coaches would say, you put two quarterbacks in front of them. One's a celebrity, one's an anonymous player, and you say it's going to be the second or third quarterback in your roster. Most coaches will say, give me the anonymous guy. It's just the way it is. So I think there were a number of factors in why he fell, but I'd say first round, second round's about talent and performance, and then after that, it's about everything else.
Yeah, and that's what I brought up because my source said that he didn't have a first round grade.
Yep.
And there aren't a lot of quarterbacks who were taken in the second round because you're either first round worthy or you're backup worthy, and that's where you get into the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh round. And I think that's what happened with Shedeur is he wasn't Jackson Dart or Cam Ward, but he wasn't going to be Jalen Hurts kind of lingering there in the second round. He was going to be viewed as a guy who was probably going to be a backup quarterback. But did the media get duped here? Because if you consider Mel Kiper, is still shouting from the mountaintops. There are a lot of people who had Shedeur in the first round, and that became a story because now everybody's shocked that he dropped as far as he did. But it almost felt like the media in general was eating what Deion was serving.
Yeah, and it was good for business too, right?
Yeah.
Like Shedeur as a fifth-round pick he's, at that point he's Case Keenum, which is a highly productive, good college quarterback who's not going to be a high draft pick, So, I would say this is sort of a symbiotic thing, where, Shedeur's camp probably felt like it was good for him to be presented as if he was going to be a top 5, top 10 pick, and like that was a lock. Like they felt like that was good for them. Now it wound up being bad for them, because I think it affected a lot of other things, but that was also good for business in the media, wouldn't you say, Dan?
Oh, yeah. Well,
and
look at the ratings.
The draft didn't have a lot of sex appeal, right? Like this, let's call it what it is. Like this was a draft that was heavy on linemen that didn't have very many blue chip guys. Travis Hunter's really interesting, but like, is Abdul Carter as good as he is? Is he driving ratings? No. The fourth pick's an offensive tackle. The fifth pick's a defensive tackle. The seventh pick is an offensive tackle. The ninth pick's an offensive tackle. Like something's got to drive the boat here, And I think it was a part of it is it's good for business for all of us. I'm not exempt from it either. I wrote a lot about Shedeur, and I talked a lot about Shedeur, and I went on TV a lot about Shedeur over the last 2 months. It was good for business that way.
Controversy is always good for business, right? This was, I guess, the 1A story of draft weekend. Didn't have anything to do with the draft, but on the CBS Sunday morning show, this light show which eases you into the last day of the weekend. It's hosted by Jane Pauley, a lovely woman in her 70s. This is not a 60 minutes hardcore type of show, but it was CBS. And Bill Belichick has a book out called The Art of Winning. And it was creepy. This is a couple of minutes from that interview. They ran about a 9-minute interview. The interference by his 24-year-old girlfriend, who also is, I guess, his manager. We saw a side of Bill Belichick we don't normally see, including, now he will show up from time to time like this while he's coaching, but this is promoting a book. You don't have to put on a suit, but he was wearing what looked like at least a 50-year-old Navy sweatshirt with a big hole there in the collar. He was even asked about the hole. Might have been an opportunity to say, oh, this sweatshirt, it belonged to my dad, and talk about his dad. No, he just sort of kind of blew that off, which was a little odd. Then we got to the real creepy part of the conversation from this interview that ran on Sunday morning on CBS.
It's also been a momentous year for Belichick. He was named head coach of the University of North Carolina, the result of a messy split from Robert Kraft and the Patriots in early 2024.
He's got a cold, so I'm not going to kiss him.
I have to ask about Robert Kraft because 24 years together, 6 Super Bowls. Unless I'm wrong, he's not in this book. How come?
He's not. Well, again, it's about my life lessons in football, and it's really more about the ones that I experienced directly.
But he's not even in the acknowledgement section.
Correct.
Do you feel like you were treated with dignity and respect when you were let go by Robert Kraft?
Yeah, well, it was a mutual decision for us to part ways.
He said fired.
It was a mutual decision.
The other change for Belichick is 24-year-old Jordan Hudson, his creative muse, as he writes in his book.
Make sure that that's the philosophy.
Jordan was a constant presence during our interview.
You have Jordan right over there. Everybody in the world seems to be following this relationship. They've got an opinion about your private life. It's got nothing to do with them, but they're invested in it. How do you deal with that?
Never been too worried about what everybody else thinks. Just try to do what I feel like is best for me and what's right.
How did you guys meet?
Not talking about this.
No?
No.
It's a topic neither one of them is comfortable commenting on, though Hudson has recently posted about it on Instagram.
You joined InstaFace, as you put it. I love that. There's some great pictures of you and Jordan, where you're a fisherman and she's a mermaid. It's charming. It's a different side of you. What's the reaction been like?
What's it been like?
To have these different sort of photos. There's another one where you're doing, I know you're not into meditation or yoga or Pilates. You're balancing Jordan on your feet, and she's doing kind of the Titanic pose.
Yeah, so I'm on some of those social media platforms, but I honestly don't follow them.
Okay, so there has been some reporting on this after the interview that at one point Jordan Hudson stormed out of the room and expected Bill to follow her, which he did not. But you don't usually see this in a one-on-one interview like this, but they purposely showed her in the background, keeping tabs on what was going on. Now, that's not unusual in an interview. There's always a publicist or somebody who works with whoever is, doing these type of interviews. That's not the point here. But this controlling thing that a 24-year-old woman is doing with a 73-year-old man who has 6 Super Bowl championships, it's bizarre. And I think it's been bizarre to watch for a while as she she appears with him frequently. You didn't usually see Bill Belichick with a woman. He was with another woman for about 10 years. She's about 20 years younger. This woman is 49 years younger. And it's just odd. And so this was Albert Breer with Dan Patrick discussing this very, very off-putting interview that was done by CBS.
Well, was it Georgia Tech against Cumberland in the was that the 222-0 game, right?
Yeah.
Like I would say that would be sort of the same matchup as CBS News against the people who are running Belichick's interview there. If that makes sense.
Well, okay, wait a minute. Now, his girlfriend's job, I would think, is to troubleshoot. She heads up his PR.
Yeah.
You have to have, let's go through the potential questions you're going to get, Bill.
Right.
I'm going to ask you the questions, and then we are going to cobble together an answer.
Yeah.
Bill seemed shocked, and then he also, when they followed up by asking,
And if it is true that the reason this got out and the reason they shot they shot her off camera is because it was nonstop interrupting and there was a real problem for them. Well, that's not the way like a professional in that situation acts. Like if you have like a publicist or a PR person who's handling that for you, I mean, you know this as well as I do, Dan. You've sat down in these like sorts of interviews before. I mean, they're usually very professional, and if there is a PR person or a publicist there for the person who is being interviewed, that person's not interrupting. That person has an idea of everything that's going on with everybody there. In a lot of cases has a relationship with the network. You know what I mean? Like, so they're working through all of that stuff
But
together.
Bill should have been prepared for that question. That's the point.
And I that part of it is
even him getting fired, Albert. He didn't even have an answer for that because they let him go, and he goes, mutual.
Yeah, but that part of it, I'm not sure he would have answered that differently. Like did that not feel to you like a little bit of knife twisting? Like, you know, with Kraft, like it just felt to me like, I know what he doesn't want to hear here, so I'm gonna twist the knife. That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah.
I mean, and we know the guy knows how to hold a grudge, right? I mean, so it felt to me like just watching it and knowing Bill and having, you know, been around professionally around Bill for the last 20 years, like he generally doesn't say a lot of things by mistake, and that correct answer was like basically like, yeah, I did it and I meant to do it and I did it for a reason.
She just has to be better. If you're gonna be his sounding board, you have to say to him, they're gonna ask you these questions.
Right.
You know, you're preparing for a deposition.
Well, and if I'm in the room, they're gonna ask about me, right?
Well, I'm sure, but you know, she could have been hands off from the standpoint of this is a book about Bill and winning. This has nothing to do with her, their relationship, or North Carolina.
Right.
But now, would I still ask? Because she's interrupting, I probably would have said, why don't you come over here and sit down with us? Because you're disrupting the interview. Either be in the interview or get out of the room.
Right. It also sort of makes Bill look weak, doesn't it?
Yes,
like I mean, it does. Like, and like we can call it what it is. Like if you're talking about like making him look good, that wasn't happening either. You know, like let him answer the question.
He's the most prepared coach we've ever had.
And you don't think he knew that could be asked? Of course he did.
Of course he did.
I mean, like if he's parking her 10 feet from the camera, like then he has to know, like they could ask about that, and maybe they will, maybe they won't, but they could ask about that. So
isn't it absurd that we're actually talking about this? If I would have said to you, hey, 3 years ago, hey, you know what's going to happen with Bill? He's going to meet this girl on a plane, and he's not going to get back in the NFL. He's going to leave the Patriots, and he's going to coach at North Carolina. And we're going to talk about how she's running his life.
Well, you look at it, it's so interesting.
And those pictures on the beach where they're posing, like
we had that thing like Brady, Kraft, Belichick for all of those years and everything else. And who's the one that's like winning that? Again, I guess that's another Georgia Tech versus Cumberland, right? Like is Brady is now a part owner of the Raiders, was you know just part of hiring a head coach and a general manager, and you know the other two guys are sort of engaged in this. It's just it is
crazy.
It feels to me like the theater of the absurd. I mean, it just like if we can all be honest about this, it's like there's no way 5 years ago, if you had told me that this is where we would be, you know, and 5 years ago is when Brady walked out the door. If you had told me like this would be where we would be left 5 years later, I would have said that sounds like a Saturday Night Live skit. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
No, you wouldn't even make this up because Bill Belichick has spent his life not letting you know what the hell's going on. We're moving on to Cincinnati. In his private life, yeah, we didn't know much. Yeah, I knew he was divorced. Knew he had a longtime girlfriend, younger, but not 49 years younger. And now this and all the public displays that go on with it. Crazy. Just Absolutely crazy. All right, coming up in the next hour, crazy stuff last night in the closing game between the Indiana Pacers and Milwaukee Bucks. We'll do Orioles preview at 10:30 and more. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
Now, from ESPN 630, your DC Sports Center.
We're brought to you by NADGA, the National Air Traffic Controllers Association. They bring you home safely. It's been 7 years since the Caps won the Cup. It's also the last time they won a playoff series. 3 more chances to get that done in their first-round series against the Canadiens, but they'd like to avoid going back to Montreal and can take care of business at home tonight at 7. 10 years ago, Caps blew a 3-1 series lead against the Rangers. Baseball, Nats play Game 2 of their series in Philly tonight. Jake Irvin starts. Last night, Nats scored 4 in the 9th to take the lead, but lost 7-6. In Baltimore, disastrous start for Kyle Gibson. 3 straight homers by the Yankees to start the game. He gave up 5 of them before being chased in the 4th of a 15-3 loss. Game 2 tonight, coverage here at 6. In football, the Commanders have signed kicker Matt Gay and have released Zane Gonzalez. D.C. weather, partly sunny, high 83. Andy Pollin, ESPN 630.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit porky, and you may even have type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Call Term Provider. Speak with Big Lou at 800-333-1750. Big Lou will find a term life policy for you even if you have type 2 diabetes, are overweight, or have high blood pressure. Term Provider has helped thousands of people like you who think they can't afford term life insurance. To buy $1 million of affordable term life for you, all you need to do is call Big Lou at 800-333-1750. Lou will make sure the scales are tipped in your favor. Call 800-333-1750. Big Lou will answer your call and work to fit you into a term life policy that you can afford. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds too. Call 800-333-1750. 800-333-1750 or biglou.com.
Texting enrolls you into recurring automated text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
Hey, Dan, how you doing? Haven't seen you around the gym.
Yeah, I've really fallen off. Since I turned 40, I just don't get the results I used to get.
Could be lower testosterone. I went through it a while back. I got Nugenix Total T, and it's made a huge difference for me.
I've seen that ad on TV. Is it for real?
Oh, yeah. The key ingredient is something called Tesnor, which helps boost free and total testosterone levels to help you trim up and stay lean.
And it's made a difference for you?
Man, I feel like I'm in my 20s again, at work, in the gym, and in the bedroom.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles for people to try it for themselves?
Yeah, you just need to send them a text. Text CUT to 42424 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T. Plus, text now and we'll include a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, our most powerful fat incinerator ever, to help you get back into shape fast, absolutely free. Text CUT to 42424. That's CUT to 42424.
Products and statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or illness.
Hey, O's fans, on Wednesday, May 28th, cheer on the Orioles against the St. Louis Cardinals at Oriole Park at Camden Yards at 6:35. Be sure to arrive early. The first 10,000 fans will receive an Orioles flag featuring the Orioles logo. Represent Berlin and show off the orange and black proudly all season long. Come out for a fun-filled evening at the Yard and enjoy an action-packed game of Orioles baseball. Buy your tickets today at Orioles.com/tickets.
Every child deserves the best teachers, facilities, and academic programs to set them up for success both now and in the future. At Milton Hershey School in Hershey, Pennsylvania, we make that a reality for children from qualifying families who are looking for greater opportunities. Milton Hershey School enrolls students from pre-K through 12th grade from across the United States to live and learn on a beautiful state-of-the-art campus with all costs covered. Students who are accepted to Milton Hershey School have access to a top-tier education, along with health care, meals, housing, and fully funded career pathways to pursue whatever they're passionate about, from performing arts to internships to coding. Students can even accrue up to $95,000 to continue their education after high school, thanks to the generosity of chocolatier Milton Hershey and his wife, Catherine. Are you looking to set your child up for success or know a child who could benefit from Milton Hershey School? Learn more at mhskids.org/admissions.
WSBN Washington, ESPN 630, the sports capital, your DC home for the Baltimore Orioles, the Baltimore Ravens, UVA basketball, and UVA football. The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got. They're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
Well, timing is everything, as they say. And the Orioles bullpen got a workout last night because Kyle Gibson had about as bad a start as you can possibly imagine. 5 pitches, 3 home runs given up to start the game. Back to back to back. And yet another home run in that first inning. They were behind 5-0. He did last into the fourth, but it was awfully ugly. So we do Orioles preview every Wednesday. It just so happens we have bullpen coach Tim Cousins on, and we'll talk about the woes of the pitching staff and all the issues they've had this year, including injuries to starters. That hasn't been a pretty picture either. But the season that the Orioles hope for is a long way from happening. I guess the good thing is this is the last day of the month of April, which has been a nightmare for them. And they have one of the worst records in baseball. The pitching numbers are some of the worst in baseball. They're not hitting either. It's a bad combination. And I don't know if you can turn it around. You can. But historically, these kind of starts don't lead you to the postseason. And you got to wonder about the future of Brandon Hyde, the manager, and Mike Elias. The two of them getting awards 2 years ago. Elias was executive of the year, and Hyde was manager of the year. And both of them may be on the hot seat. Hard to tell because there's new ownership. David Rubenstein, who's still getting his feet wet. He's had the team for just over a year, and it's quite possible that he's going to want to take his time on this. That's the last thing you want to be known as an impatient owner. And we saw that with Dan Snyder for sure. You know how that played out. I'm not making any comparisons with Rubenstein, but it is a little scary with the way the season has started for the Baltimore Orioles. So we had an interesting story last night with Indiana eliminating Milwaukee in the NBA playoffs in a first-round series. They weren't going to win anyway, Milwaukee, because Damian Lillard is now dealing with a torn Achilles, which I would think would put most, if not all, of next season in question. Kevin Durant missed an entire season with a torn Achilles suffered in the finals. He's made it back. A lot of guys don't come back at all, and those who do are diminished. He has not been. But you got to hope for the best for Damian Lillard, who's been a great player for a long time. He's said, I don't want to go out this way, and I don't think anybody's thinking he's going to retire, but it's quite possible that he won't play next season, which also leaves Antetokounmpo in question because, he's a guy who's been patient. He's, a lot of people thought he might leave Milwaukee. He did not. He's re-signed. But in this day and age, if you are a superstar and you want to go, you go. But the real story of this game, which is why we're spending some time on it, because it's a first-round series, and there's like a zillion of them going on right now in the NBA. The Pacers did eliminate the Bucks 119-118 in overtime, but what they did in the last 40 seconds is unbelievable. They closed the game with an 8-0 run. Indiana forced 2 turnovers in the last 29 seconds of overtime. And Tyrese Halliburton was the big hero there, scoring the winning bucket. After the game, Tyrese Halliburton's father, wearing a Halliburton 0 jersey, and this was a home game for the Pacers, came out on the court and got in the face of Giannis Antetokounmpo. And there was they were giving out towels last night, yellow towels in Indianapolis to, get the crowd all fired up. And there was an altercation between the two of them. Not punches thrown, but it was pretty clear that Antetokounmpo was not happy with the taunting that he was getting from John Halliburton. So as soon as the game was over, they go to the TNT studio, and there's Kenny and Shaq and Charles, and then Ernie Johnson to be the moderator of this. Although Ernie let these guys go a lot longer than I thought he would. So this is about 2 minutes of kind of the chaos that was going on in the studio with Shaq, and this surprised me because Shaq has talked about it's his stepfather, but he considers him his father. He's a no-nonsense military guy. Shaq gives him a lot of credit for the way he was raised with a military background where these kind of things you would think would not be acceptable
in his house. But I was surprised that Shaq took the side of the dad in what was, clearly, and we'll get to what the dad said about it later, but this is the chaos that ensued in the studio at TNT after the chaos that ensued on the court.
You can't run on the stage. You cannot run on the court and harass all the players. Everybody on the court. Get out of here. Everybody. He's not supposed to be on the court. He's not on the court. He's on the court. He's not supposed to be on the court. No, you stop it. He's not supposed to be on the court. On the court. No, he's not supposed to be on the court. You can't go. No, you can't go to a play and no. That's just stupid. That's just stupid for you to say that. There's no reason. Talk to him. No, he's not supposed to be on the court. He's not supposed to be on the court. Giannis talk to him. Forget all that. No, he was on the court. So what? You think he said something? He probably didn't know who his dad is. Stop it. Y'all just said something. No, because he's on the court in his face. So what? Everybody on the court. No, you can't do that. Yeah, you can. No, you cannot do that. Y'all just said something to him. So you think his dad was correct? No, his dad was 100% wrong. Giannis was wrong? Bro, Giannis said something to him. No, he did not. Yes, he did. No, he not. Look, right there. No, his dad is coming up to him. What is his dad doing on the court? His dad is not supposed to be on the court. You can yell as much as you want to. He's an idiot. If you think that's why you're an idiot too. Giannis says something. No, that's not true. No, I'm just telling you. That dad is an idiot, and if you think he's an idiot, you're an idiot too. I will say that no. His dad is always on the court. I will say this. We all have met his dad, and he has. His dad's always on the court. He should be on the court. You don't have an entitlement because your son is playing to be on the court. Hold on, time out. He's always on the court. He should be on the court. I don't care. He's always on the court. He should not be on the court talking to other players. Bro, Giannis said something to him. He didn't say nothing to Giannis. No, he did not. No, that's not true. He couldn't have said anything to him. Walking in the line behind his son. What do you mean walking in the line behind his son? He shouldn't be on the court. He didn't play in the game. Always on the court. No, he shouldn't be. He shouldn't be on the court. No, there's no entitlement for that.
If you think this conversation is entertaining, just wait until you hear what they said after the game.
And before we get to what they said after the game, let me lean on my young colleague here, Isaac, and he is a former basketball player himself, and his father was instrumental in he and his twin brother playing basketball. I'm sure he was at many of your games. What's your reaction to what went on last night?
I think the old AAU parent came out of Mr. Halliburton last night.
Mm-hmm.
Like the old helicopter.
Yeah.
AAU's like, oh, I'm so hyped. My son, he's doing it. Because my dad was never like that with us. Like he was always in the shadows. Like we didn't even know if he was at the game unless he was coaching us.
Did you ever experience like something like this with another parent of a teammate or somebody on the other team?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
You got a good story about that? Or?
I do, but I've got to be careful about names because
names.
That current person's playing professionally.
Okay.
Parent came out on the floor after their kid hit a game winner and was like talking smack to my 13U AAU team.
Oh
yeah, while we were in New Jersey.
Yeah,
and like they were talking. Like every type of George Carlin 7 words you shouldn't say on TV to a bunch of 13-year-olds in Vineland, New Jersey. And that was just because their kid hit a game winner. I mean, their kid was good. Ended up going, playing Division I. I'm not going to say his name, but he ended up playing mid-major Division I. But, that was intense. My mom had to step in there. My mom's usually a quiet person, but
so your mom was the peacemaker with the parent.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Good for your mom.
Yeah.
My kids played sports, not at a high level, but I purposely stayed out of it because I didn't want anybody to say that idiot runs his mouth on the radio, thinks he knows what he's talking about. So I stayed occasionally. They'd ask me to coach third base or something, baseball, but I didn't coach the team. I was fortunate that they both had good coaches along the way. But this is a real problem. In youth sports, you would not expect it to happen in the NBA. And again, I'm kind of surprised by the reaction of Shaq because of the type of upbringing that he had, right? I mean, doesn't that make any sense to you?
It doesn't, because clearly in the video, Giannis does have his moments. I've heard from my NBA friends that Giannis does have his moments, but he didn't do anything. He didn't provoke that. That was all Mr. Halliburton. He was just excited.
It's one thing to be excited, and it's one thing to go out and hug your son for being the hero at the end of that game. It's another to taunt an opponent, especially one who's 6'10"?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so here's the reaction. Giannis and, for that matter, Tyrese Halliburton were great after this. And Giannis, okay, you say you've heard some things about him, but publicly, I think he's been exemplary throughout his career. The things that he says, the way he handles losses and things like that, I'm very impressed with him.
No, he's been perfect. I mean, the only things I've heard is that I know that if you don't make him upset.
Okay.
Giannis is very passionate about himself. That's the only thing I've heard from a couple people that have worked around him in the league.
Yeah, well, that's what you expect. So this was the Giannis reaction to this, and he very cleverly does a little flex on this too. Listen for that. But he was, of course, asked about this in the post-game news conference, and this is his account of what happened on the court.
I don't really see you as someone that gets into it with people after the game. It looked like you were kind of standing there by the three-point line, then all of a sudden you're in the middle of kind of everything. Just what happened kind of out on the floor after the game?
Nothing. This is the last time I'm going to say. I won't talk a lot. We lost the game. It doesn't really matter. One thing I'll say is that I believe being humble in victory. That's how I am. Now there can be a lot of people out there that are like, no, when you win the game, you got taxed and it's a green light for you to be disrespectful towards somebody else. I disagree. I've won the championship. They haven't. Okay? And that doesn't say anything. I'm not trying to minimize their effort. But I remember when I won, my mom, that she's never missed the games from February 11th or 13th when she came in Milwaukee against the Knicks. She never missed a game. When we won the championship, I remember my mom, she was scared to cross. She was like, am I allowed to come and hug my son? I see, except now my brother does media. For this year, he wants to come back and play. But except in that, you've never seen my family see courtside. See, this is not something that we do. We don't. I try to keep my family away from the game. But losing the game, emotions run high, having a fan, which at the moment I thought he was a fan, but then I realized it was Tyrese's son, which I love Tyrese. I think he's a great competitor. He was his dad, sorry. Coming in the floor and showing me his son a towel with his face. This is what we do. This is what we effing do. This the F we do. This. I feel like that's very, very disrespectful. My dad, if you guys go and ask and learn, my dad's not with us no more. My dad used to come in the family room and he was the most respectful person ever. When you come from nothing and you've worked your whole life to sell stuff in the street, and your whole life you'll be scared of the police of deporting you and sending you back to your country. You have to protect your kids with all means. You create this mentality of being humble your whole life, to not kind of disrespect anybody, not make the tension high, the emotions high, so anybody can snitch on you, say something bad about you. So when he came here, I remember I was like, Dad, why are you so humble? Why are you going to the family room? You don't even say a word. You sit in the back. Why are you like that? Don't worry about it. Don't worry. That's how I grew up. That's what I had around. So when I see other dads, which don't disrespect me, maybe if my son play basketball, I might be in the court. I might be the one on the court, and 20 years later, you can play this interview and say, Giannis, you're contradicting yourself. But we'll see in 20 years. But I'm talking about right now how I feel. Having somebody's dad, which I'm happy for him, and I'm happy for his son, and I'm happy that he's happy for his son. That's how you're supposed to feel. But coming to me and disrespecting me and cursing at me, I think is totally unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. Okay? And I'm not the guy that points fingers, because in my neighborhood, snitches get stitches. So I don't want to say something, for him to get fined or anything. But it's not respectful. I talked with him at the end, and I think we're in a good place.
Yeah, they actually are in a good place. That's a good line, too. Snitches get stitches. He also, humbly flexed. I won the championship, and I won it humbly. And anyway, this was Therese Halliburton, and I think he also said all the right things when asked about the incident.
I had no idea it happened until I got to the back and was showed the video. Me and my pops have talked about that, and I don't agree with what transpired there from him. I think basketball is basketball, and let's keep it on the court. And I think that he just got excited, saw his son make a game winner, and came on the court. But I think we had a conversation, and I think he just needs to just allow me to just play basketball, stay over there. I'll come to him to celebrate. But I think just the emotions of the game just got excited there. But I talked with him. I'll talk with Giannis eventually about it. Just I don't think that my pops was in the right at all there, and unfortunate what happened in the end there. But I mean, this series was a lot of war of words, a lot of war of antics, a lot of stuff going back and forth, and that's just part of this rivalry and what we've built here over the last couple of years. And it's unfortunate what happened there, but I think it's just competition. And as far as my pops, again, I don't agree with what happened there. We'll have a conversation. Everybody's grown men, and we'll just go from there.
And apparently he did. Good for him, because the dad, very early this morning, tweeted out an apology to Giannis, the Bucks, and the Pacers organization. He said that was not a good reflection on our sport or my son. I will not make that mistake again. And Therese tweeted it out again. So, okay, I think all's well that ends well, I guess. But that was not a good look, and well handled, certainly, by both Giannis and Halliburton and his dad, for that matter, too. So that's okay. The other issue, I wonder your thoughts on this, Isaac, is that I've met Doc Rivers. He's a hell of a guy. He's won a championship with the Milwaukee Bucks. He's been a coach for a long, long time. And, it's true that you're not going to win this series without Damian Lillard. I understand that. But his record in the playoffs, it's terrible, It really is. I mean, when you meet him, he's a very impressive guy and an excellent regular season coach. But at what point do you say, okay, let's stop hiring Doc Rivers?
I think this is possibly his last stop. And I probably will bite myself in the foot if, let's say he gets let go by the Bucks and gets rehired somewhere else because of his just championship record with the Celtics. But I think this is it. His coaching is starting to come out dated based off this series alone.
Yeah. It's too bad, because if you meet him, he's an incredibly impressive guy, really. And, he's done well in broadcasting, too, because, he's very likable and all that. But, sooner or later, your record has to dictate what happens here. All right, let me get your thoughts on this one, too. Here, I'll give you my thoughts first and see if you agree. The Four Nation tournament for hockey was a grand slam. Huge. Canceling the Hockey All-Star game and having the Four Nation tournament, tremendous. And with what was going on in the world with Trump and Canada and everything, that added to it.